We continue our discussions on the radical collaborations that we have been agitating for, promoting on this platform, where we talk to different stakeholders about the improvement of local government and the governance, service delivery, provision of infrastructure, and so it goes. The focus today is going to be on the provision and maintenance of infrastructure at local level. So I'm joined by someone who is very much familiar with this subject. He's the CEO of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Alan Mukoki. Thank you very much, Alan, for talking to us.
Thank you for the invite and good morning to you and your listeners as well.
Just give me a broad sense of what business expects from local government, particularly when it comes to infrastructure, and what the situation is in South Africa at the moment.
Well, you know what business expects is quick turnaround times when we've made inquiries or requests for anything. For instance, the area of water, provision of electricity, removal of waste, and cleaning up of our suburbia and roads that are actually functioning, and very responsive infrastructure basically on many of the other pieces, whether you're looking for a permit from the local government or you are actually complaining about some burst pipe somewhere. You want there to be speed, because speed is very important for productivity. If you don't have that level of speed, you don't have that level of service that is very proactive, then you're actually always going to be coming from behind all the time. So it's a very critical area that you've got infrastructure, the roads are working, there are no potholes, you can drive cars very quickly as you do your deliveries, and you're not actually disturbed by punctures. And things just work, you know, traffic lights are actually working, because when traffic lights are not working, whether you want to blame ESCOM or whoever, in the final analysis, we experience government at a local level. You and I don't have a relationship with Pretoria or the Union Building, so our relationship is here in the street of Johannesburg as we walk up and down and we're trying to conclude our business.
But what is the general situation then in the country? I know of particular cases where local governments, municipalities did not deliver on certain things. I think Lichtenburg is an example where Clover had to move because they were not provided with water, and other parts of the country these things have happened. But typically, what is going on at the local government level?
There is a general sense of discouragement right now, because obviously, as you've seen with the AG reports, you've had so many municipalities, basically a lot of Munichs that have disclaimers, very qualified audits, those who are doing better, and very few of those that are actually performing at the right level. And mainly because there are no skills. In other words, people are not doing the right things when it comes to hiring the right people and people being accountable and responsible for the tasks that have actually been given. So business does not necessarily have a sense of high confidence in local government in many of the local Munichs at this particular point in time, because of this apathy that you experience generally when you go there to do anything whatsoever. So it's a very serious problem. I mean, a basic thing such as whether you can clean and sweep the street is fundamental for whether you can conduct business or not. If I'm operating my business, for instance, outside, and I took a lease outside of a shop in Elof Street, and the next thing I hear, there's a group of 20 hawkers that are also selling a product that might just be similar to my product. Sometimes, you know, goods that are actually being dumped by other countries get to be given to hawkers, and they're actually selling them outside. It's a role of local government to make sure that those kinds of things don't actually happen. You are not necessarily by saying that you say the informal sector must be killed, but you can't run an informal sector outside of formalized business that is paying taxes outside where they've actually taken a lease. Because in the end, what you're actually doing is that you're allowing substandard goods to be brought into the country. Quite a number of these goods are actually being brought in at huge cost to the fiscus, because taxes, import duties, excise and customs are actually also not being paid. So it's a very interrelated problem as it relates to that. And then where you then do allow areas where you say I can allow informal trading to actually take place, then look at the hygiene. You don't clean the streets, people just dirty the roads, and no one is, and it's not the fault of the people who are actually in business who are informal traders. It's because the council itself should respond appropriately. You've now allowed people to be there. Then make sure that they are going to ablution facilities. Why do you allow people to create informal trading stalls in an area, but you don't actually provide toilet facilities? There are no basins, there's no hygiene, and then the streets are actually dirty. It's the role of local government to ensure that you provide that particular service, including to those informal traders. Because if you don't do that, you're creating a general state of lawlessness, you're creating a general state of dilapidation in those particular areas. And it impacts, obviously, those people who are informal business because they pay the tax, they pay the personal income tax, they deduct the pay from the employees, they pay the VAT, they pay, the corporate income tax. And you can't run a state in that particular manner because you just allow whatever to happen to happen.
What are your members telling you about their relationships with the different municipalities? I mean, you've explained what municipalities should do. And I would take for granted that councillors know this. That's why they are councillors, and that's why the municipalities exist. Obviously, there's the rationale for the existence of municipalities. They have objectives, they've got roles to play, they've got budgets, all of those things. Now, if these are known to the councillors and the municipalities, I'm including the officials here, why are they not delivering on the very things that you have mentioned?
Because of lack of incentives. In other words, people don't have an incentive to perform. You've got very low apathetic levels now of active participation in local government by the voters, to whom the councillors are supposed to actually be accountable to. People stay away from the polls. They don't come to effect the change that they want to do. There are areas where we are listened to, and I certainly can say here in Johannesburg when MMC Mbundu, Nkululeko was there. I don't remember which of the parties he represented. I think Action SA, but he was in the executive of the former Mayor Mpho Palatse, with whom we also worked very, very, very well. We experienced a very different dynamic in terms of that level of the relationship by our local chambers here, Randburg, and the other chambers that are actually in the area. So it depends. Some in the Western Cape.
What do you mean you experienced a different dynamic when you were working with them? What is happening?
Of dynamic, people were very reachable. Each time we set up meetings with the MMC to meet with him and his team, he was always very much available. Each time we set up meetings with the mayor herself, she was very much available. So it depends, I don't think that you have exactly the same experience everywhere. But it's just the general feeling that in general, the majority of cases, the case that I'm mentioning, such as the former MMC Mbundu, is more of an exception rather than the rule, because I'm answering your question. That should be the rule. We should all operate with exactly the same template of performance requirements. So it looks like there's a problem with training at local government to begin with, purely because, these local government organizations, whether they're in all these coalitions, they don't all have the same standards. In other words, we don't elect and select people and hold them accountable with exactly the same standard, as I said earlier on, because people are supposed to be accountable to voters. Voters are absent from the polls, so no one cares about anything. Everybody else does whatever it is that they're doing. So whether it's a local council under the ANC or the DA or a coalition of one sort or the other, the standards are never the same. Even within the same municipality executive committee, you find that there are variances in terms of performance because you don't have one singular template that says, this is the way, these are the values that we attach ourselves to, and we will actually, when it comes to service, client service offering, this is what we're all committing to actually do. Everybody else does whatever it is that they're doing, and the coalition framework is not actually helping us with anything. It's simply maintaining and keeping people in power, but people who are not necessarily themselves aligned to one single purpose in terms of what it is that they're actually trying to do or what it is that they're trying to achieve. So that's part of the problem.
Now, in the, let me call them the poorer regions of the country, right? We know that budgets are allocated for the development and the build of the infrastructure and the maintenance thereof. But these standards can be very inconsistent. As the business community, how are you working with the municipalities, particularly in those outlying areas? We've referenced Johannesburg a great deal because this is a metro and a big city with big budgets. What are businesses doing to assist municipalities to improve the maintenance of infrastructure?
The businesses, to the extent where they've won the tender to build that's what they would do. But it is not the job of business to be assisting local government to do the job of local government. We as business need the help of local government so that we're able to deliver what we need to deliver so that we can pay the tax, we can pay the indirect and the direct taxes so that we can actually then maintain the roads, because you can only do the maintenance if there's, as you say, there's a budget. Budget must be made up of revenue and expenses. We want to be on the revenue side of the equation. So if you drag business as well onto the expenditure side of the budget, then no one is going to be making money, because now you're obviously killing the goose that's laying the golden egg. So we want the people on the expense side of the balance sheet, of the income statement, to ensure that they create the necessary conditions and the service level agreements that are required so that the people on the revenue side can continue to generate the revenue for the city so that we can make more business. And when we make more business, then we're able to fund the local council. So to that extent, look, it is the beast, the way it is, the beast that we're facing is the one that we're facing, because until we address the issue of a meritocracy in terms of how do we even design the template for the type of person that should be a councillor, and not only the type of person that should be the councillor, but the type of person that should be in local government administration, because that's where the problem really lies. You know, politicians can come and go, but if you don't have a very strong structure of those people who are public servants at the local government, who are highly competent, highly skilled, highly experienced, and are actually held high in terms of the performance standards that they should deliver to, you are not necessarily going to solve this problem. And I think that we should stop pretending these are short-term problems. We've got a very permanent problem, and the permanent problem requires us to resolve it in a way that's permanent. And we start with the redesign of the type of individual that we want to be the city manager. And that person is going to put together their team. And what is the template that we're using to say a city manager ought to look like that? Are we happy with the quality that we currently have? And we're not as business, absolutely, because we do think that the government needs to do something more in terms of getting the right skills and compensate them correctly, because part of the problem is that you create these bureaucratic principles and rules that you can only pay a city manager X amount of money. Then that restricts you in terms of attracting the best available resource that you can find outside of that public sector environment. So you continue to repeat the same cycle that's not necessarily working for anyone. If the job has become complex, if the job is a 6 or 7 or 10, then you go look for a 6 or 7 or 10 wherever you can find them in the marketplace, whether it's in the private sector or in the public sector.
So we have this problem, and there are specific districts that have already suffered as a result in a high-profile manner, where businesses have said they're going to move out of those particular neighborhoods and go elsewhere. We've already seen some of those. Now, we need to improve the situation. Everybody will agree with you. But I think as business, you do have a sense of how the collaboration or partnerships can work with municipalities. Do you have any idea that you would like to share with us and that you would propose to municipalities and national government for that matter?
Well, one of those collaborative ideas, as I say, it's the one thing that you need to move. If you move that thing, everything else falls in place. It's the idea that you need to change the people, skills, and competencies piece, and then the culture and the values piece. In other words, for any organization that you want to run successfully, it's always going to be about the right people, the right skills, the right values, and the right culture. And I know a lot of times, I can bring you 20 business school professors here. They'll want to come and tell you about strategy and tell you about policy and tell you about systems and tell you about structure and a whole range of things. None of those things actually matter at all. The only thing that matters, as I say, only these 4 things. Bring in the right people who have the right skills and make sure that you design the right set of values and culture that can drive that particular organization. Because if you start there, and that's one of the things that I'm saying we can share as business, to say, let's look at how you are currently putting together a team within local government, whether it's Tshwane, whether it's anywhere else. Most of those problems start with management, right? They start with management because either A, we didn't hire the right person, or B, we're not performance managing the right person. So the selection, recruitment, and retention of the right skills is a very, very critical component. And we mustn't work with what we currently have. No, we must work with a template. What we currently have must meet with a template. If what we have does not meet with this particular template, then what we have must go. so that we can go find something that fits in with the right template. When we say what kind of qualifications we're looking for, and by qualifications, you don't always mean academic, but we mean someone who's got and can display and can prove the competencies that we are all talking about. So we have to make sure that we now know that we are going to be very focused and uncompromising when it comes to who do we want to be the city manager and how do they put that team together. When we say someone is in finance, you look at financial management in a number of the AG reports. Poor basic skills in just financial accounting. How did we get there in the first place? We got there because we, number one, did not make sure there's a culture here that says we hire technically competent people and we can define what we mean by technically competent, whether it's academic skills, whether it's proven performance track record, whether it's experience, whether it's skills, and we can vouch for these people who can put them through a proper assessment of not a story of I can hear from someone else that this person can do the job. No, we can put them through a proper scientific process as we do in the private sector when it comes to hiring people in high impact jobs. So that's one aspect that you cannot actually change. The other piece, of course, is to change the culture in terms of what is the culture. Culture is very, very important because culture is the way we do things around here. It's a mistake for many organizations to believe that culture must not be codified. Culture must be something that is codified. If we agree that we only hire people here who have an organized mind, can we define what that means like? And then can we measure and performance manage on that? That the people who work here understand complexity. That's part of the culture here. The people who work here have got an execution mindset. That's culture. Can we define what we mean by that? So that these things are all written down. So when you are a mayor and you are going to sit down with your executive committee to hire the next city manager, the next city financial officer, the next city project manager, there's a very clear template. Right now, everybody else is bringing different standards because some of the councillors, if you saw some of the reports, some of them have got a standard 5 education. Some of them only went to high school, but they never actually finished. And now they are sitting together. They are now supposed to determine the type of person that we should actually hire to be the head of water or to be the head of health or to be and these are all senior public servants that ought to be the people who are actually running the structure so that the politicians can continue to do the politics and not try to do the actual management of the delivery itself.
Alan Mukoki, thank you very much for talking to us and we appreciate your time. And that's the CEO of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Alan Mukoki. Well, let's discuss the challenges of infrastructure provision at local level and the impact that poor maintenance of infrastructure may have on businesses that operate at that level. Kentlak, you started life as a farmer, moved into the dairy industry, processing milk, started the company Twizza, and so it goes. But the experience in recent times has been very difficult for you in the Komani, Queenstown area. Tell me the story. What's going on there?
Tim, we started to engage with the municipality in 2017 where we saw the municipality was starting to lose about 10 million rand a month. Eskom bill was at 40 million. And we said, guys, Eskom's going to cut us off. We need to sort things out. Bottom line is, after much intervention, 3 administrators, and a lot of effort, now even a national cabinet representative with national intervention, our Eskom bill is sitting at 1.075 billion. I don't think much is being paid off on a monthly basis. We have electrical infrastructure that's on the verge of collapse, total collapse. There has been no really proactive maintenance done in the town and the major substations around the town for probably in excess of 20 years. There's no master plan. There is no maintenance plan which seeks to address the issues on the master plan. So besides load shedding, we have got municipality shedding. And there's a group, and all I see, there's no power in this street, and there's no power in that street. And so it goes. And the people are actually so browbeaten at the moment. They feel quite helpless. There's no access to the municipality to speak of. There's an effort here and there to make communication happen with, the ratepayers and the like. But honestly, the municipality is in a state where it has zero money. They've already spent 23 million this year on patching cables and this and that and the next thing. But they say they patch the same cable 5 times without sorting out the real problem. And so fundamentally, there is no helicopter view of what the problem is. They won't take advice as to how to fix those problems. And with the result, we just stumble on down this road. We can see the cliff edge coming, but we carry on walking. We don't turn around and say, guys, let's take hands and let's sort these problems out. Because if we do that, we can do it. I'm sure we can. It's been done in many other parts of the country. But there's lack of willingness to admit things aren't right, things are failing, and we need help. You can't turn a situation around unless you actually admit that there's a problem and that help is required, to turn the problem around. The municipality has continued to frustrate the efforts of the NCR and his team to intervene and do the right thing. I believe we had a really good team on hand, and I liaised with them on a regular basis to try and, to bring them up to speed as to what I thought the problems were. And
who is that? Sorry, you mentioned, and you said NCR?
Yeah, the National Cabinet representative was Dr. Tom. And you might remember that June last year, Bloemfontein and Queenstown were put under national supervision. And basically what has happened is that the local council just sidelined the NCR and his team. They kind of just wouldn't allow them to do their duty. And so I think here's fundamentally where the failure comes in, is that National has not taken the situation in hand and said, guys, sorry, I sent the NCR and his team here just to do a job of work. You are interfering with that and you're disrupting that process. And the result is that there's a stalemate as far as that's concerned. So national intervention, as it was announced last year, is not happening. It is stalled.
Okay. Yeah, but I'll come back to you in a moment, Ken. Let me find out from Richard what the experience is amongst your colleagues in the business community of Makanda.
Tim, Makanda's context is in some ways similar to other failing municipalities around the country, but it is also different in that we have engaged with various partners, one being the Kagiso Trust, and we're going on a journey of radical collaboration. So we're sitting, we're meeting, we're talking, we're engaging. That doesn't mean that we are it's smooth sailing. It's difficult. There is a massive, massive trust deficit. However, our municipality has acknowledged that what they are doing is not sufficient. Perhaps the best example is our city motto is a great place to be, and they've changed it to a great place to be by 2030. Whilst I hope it happens far sooner than that, at least it's an acknowledgement that it's not a great place to be and we've got major deficits. So at the moment, our challenges are water and water reticulation. So at best, we are on a 1 day on, 1 day off in terms of water supply. Our electrical distribution is not sufficient. So we're getting double load shedded. So not only by Eskom, but also from failures in the grid and at substations. Our road infrastructure is poor and needs serious maintenance. Our solid waste has been piling up and has been an issue on and off. And then our sewage, raw sewage, and the treatment of raw sewage is wholly inaccurate. Whilst it is a problem for Makanda, it's even a greater problem for Nglambe municipality and Port Alfred as the water flows towards them down the Kawi River. So that kind of frames where we are. We also, I think it's important to understand what type of city we are. Our economy is basically based on the tertiary sector. It's education, it's services like the courts, law. There's not much industry. I can only think of three businesses that manufacture anything at scale here. So really it's tourism, it's education and law. And that's what we do. For any of those entities to survive, to thrive, to grow, you need good infrastructure. And that's the challenge.
Sure. And I suppose, Ken, to come back to you, I mean, you are in a production manufacturing type business. What has the impact of what you told us earlier been on your business when you look at the evolution of the problems over the past 5 or 10 years? Tell me more about the impact of this.
Tim, it's absolutely catastrophic. If we get to stage 6 load shedding, there are certain machines we cannot run productively anymore. It's just not possible. On the dairy side, obviously, it's a lot more tricky. So we've had to put in big generators, and our fuel costs are just rocketing. And, at the end of the day, this is creating major costs for all businesses, not just ours, and it's debilitating. And the problem is, Tim, there is no plan and there is no end in sight as to, and I speak both nationally and from a local government perspective. And I think that's the real challenge that we have. What plans do you put in place? When you put in big generators, you're looking at a cost of electricity that is between 7 and 12 times that of Eskom electricity. Now, how do you replace Eskom electricity at that kind of price and still run an efficient and profitable business? It's almost impossible. In fact, in certain low-value items, it is impossible.
So the implication for you as a business owner, operator who employs people and so on, what is it? How are you going to get out of this situation or get it to be resolved?
Tim, as far as I'm concerned, that I was very heartened when I saw that at a national level, senior businesses and banks got together with the president and started to talk. Because what we need in this country is to sit around a table and develop a plan and a national plan of how we can move together and work together to solve these problems. In Queenstown, we've got just an organization that we started called Let's Talk Komani, and our new chairman is looking to set up a group of elders who can speak to the community about the problems and get some national consensus as to how we move forward. We need we're a divided society. Democracy has not brought us together. It's divided us further apart, as I see it. And how do we get together and understand what our problems are and share our expertise to sort those problems out? Unless we get to that both at a national level and at a community and local government level, I can't see us sorting these problems out. There's a huge willingness to become involved in being a part of the solution. But if you show them the door every time, what role can you play?
Agreed. But Richard, you are trying things in Makanda with the radical collaboration and the Circle of Unity efforts that you have initiated there. Are they beginning to bear fruit? How do you collaborate? How do you work together to improve whatever parts that you can improve?
Tim, I think it's about sitting down at the table and having discussions. And if I'm honest, there's a lot of talking and very little action. And whilst that frustration is there, at least the conversations are happening and the directionality is there. One takes what President Ramaphosa said at the SONA conference, not the SONA, the SALGA conference last year in East London. He said the real estate capture is happening at a local government level. The Auditor General is not writing fiction novels. They follow what really happens. Therefore, you should take them seriously. So we know what the problems are. We know what the issues are, but we fail to hold people to account. And we fail as the electorate to hold people account, and the government officials are not being held to account by their executive. So we've got a real challenge. But certainly I do feel that we've had some traction with radical collaboration. We are moving forward. We are making some progress, albeit too slow. If we don't speed up that process in the coming months, it might be a little bit too little, too late.
And Ken, in your case, what do you think you can do now? You were mentioning the national representative who has been sent to come and assist the community of Komani. And from a business perspective, obviously, the situation is very urgent for you, for those challenges to be resolved. So what else can you do beyond where you are now?
So, Tim, I think our last resort is to approach the courts to dissolve the municipality and to give the national cabinet representative and his team the opportunity to do the job that they were intended to do, or that they were instructed to do in the first place. And they need to be supported by, government politically and financially from a treasury perspective, and particularly from an expertise point of view. As I see it, the entire organization has been hollowed out. And we need to get to a point where we put proper capacity in place and we get the various votes in the municipality to function in a way that they intended to function, to do the planning, to see what is a priority, and to allocate funding to sort out those priorities and to attract business to our town. And that is just not happening. Queenstown is a hub. It's an economic hub for quite a large area, both in the farming community and in the Transkei. And we have a lot of people coming in and out of town. So it's a very popular place for businesses to be. But the municipality is making it impossible to do business here. And we have to develop some sort of local consensus or local dialogue where we can, fix things that need to be fixed. And I'm afraid to say that a lot needs to change to get us to that space. And unfortunately, there's this resistance by the local municipality and the ANC in that municipality to do exactly that.
Richard, let me ask you the final question. You've tried things, you're trying, with the radical collaboration and the circle of unity. Does that give you confidence that things will improve going forward? And do you have a sense of the timeline of when you will say, yes, we are making progress?
Tim, I'm confident that we are moving in the right direction. I'm not 100% sure when we will be firmly on that position, but I certainly feel that within the next 3 to 4 years, we should be well on our way turning Makanda back into a great place to be. And so, as I said, I'm cautiously optimistic.
And Ken, last word from you. What else can you do beyond what we've heard from you?
We're not giving up, Tim. We are bolted to the ground here in Queenstown. And we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that change happens, and change happens for everybody. Because believe you me, if you think we are suffering in the towns, wait until you talk to the people in the townships and you see how they're suffering. And I think everybody's fuse is getting very short here. And so something's going to change sooner or later. And hopefully when that time comes and we can stand together and work for what is right, then we'll see major change happening. But as of now, in my view, State capture is alive and well, and it's thriving and milking the cow dry in Queenstown.
Ken, thank you very much. And Richard, thank you again. Good luck, gentlemen. And of course, hang in there. Many fellow South Africans across the nation would like to see things improve. And that's why we're having these discussions, so we can motivate one another to hold hands and improve service delivery, improve infrastructure, and improve governance. Much appreciated. Thank you.